The story starts with a narrator telling the reader that Deus Ex Machina is a virtual reality game that came out 15 years ago and that he loved this game so much that he dedicated his whole life to it. We are introduced to Lee Eo-jin, our 35-year-old main character who is addicted to this game. He goes inside the blacksmith building to do some strengthening, and we find out that no new players have replaced the old ones, who are now called deceased, and he is known as Rotten Water. He explains that he had many positions in the game, but it appears he is now in debt. He starts to strengthen his sword and goes on to level 5 with no problems. He is very excited with every level up, and by level 7, he has enough to pay back the loan shark. He decides to strengthen the blade one more time as he wants to turn his life around. After reaching level 8, his greed takes over, and despite warnings, he strengthens it again, only to lose the sword completely. He regrets his actions and even goes as far as to regret ever starting this game. Then, Lee Eo-jin startles awake in a hospital bed and is told that he experienced a seizure while beta testing the game. He finds this very familiar, and the management offers him money and a new capsule. He finds it hard to believe that it has only been 15 minutes since he lay in the capsule and suddenly wonders if he has gone back to the past. Back home, Eo-jin wonders if what he experienced was a dream. He notices how he looks younger. We then find out that the reason he ended up like this was that one female junior borrowed an item from him for a live stream, who ended up getting killed, and her killer took all the items. This led Eo-jin to hunt high-ranking monsters, sell their drops, and even take out loans to make up for that item. During this, the stocks for the game continued to drop, and he ended up buying the ruling sword from his loans, thinking he would be okay if he strengthened it and sold it. He goes back into the game and smirks, saying that he knew it wasn't a dream as it is the same as what he experienced. He gets a wooden sword and meets his first enemy, a Carnage bee. He fights it and easily defeats it by remembering its vital point, its neck. He receives its stinger as a drop. This makes him conclude that he has traveled back in time as everything is the same as he remembers. He vows to be on top to enjoy the game this time. Next, we are told that the tutorial tower has 10 floors and the player has to clear them all to go to the main world. We see Eo-jin reach level 9 and set a world record by being the fastest. He then gets to decide the difficulty level of the last enemy and sets it to C+. We then hear commentary regarding his performance as everyone is shocked by his skills. Back to Eo-jin, we see him defeat the Skeleton King easily, and he receives an iron armor. He says how items are more important in this game than stats and wants to get them all. He then unlocks the hidden floor 2 of level 10, which is said to be the most difficult quest, and enthusiastically prepares to defeat the monster. He is humbled as he faces an S-rank monster and wonders how he will defeat it. Eo-jin tells us that this monster is called the torture technician of the Dragon Prison, who is an extremely powerful monster. He suddenly realizes that the reason he has been able to avoid it is because this is a nerfed version. He decides to fight it by attrition warfare, attacking it over days. He says that he has time on his side, as you can log out if you lose concentration or stamina. He defeats the monster in 3 months and is now a level 32 player. He also receives Chisel of Death, an S-rank weapon, and he wonders how he got it as it belonged to the God of Calamity. He decides to stay human and hunt both dragons and demons. We are then taken to the beginner's village, where everyone is watching him with worried expressions as he appears to be naked. He gets called by a group of older players who want to take his weapon, and he tries to take them to a quiet area to get rid of them. Then, we see Eo-jin take on the bullies, and he beats them all up without breaking a sweat, and even manages to get a new item, Slime Essence. He is pleased as this will help him clear out a dungeon. He then sees that the iron armor he put up for auction is going for a very high price. He says that in the past he was busy putting money into the game, but this time he will take all the money he earns in the game to the real world. Then the scene shifts, and we see Eo-jin standing before the shaking demon maze. He wants to find the item called Earthquake Archer that is given to players who clear this maze. As he enters, he faces an Oni, and he goes to attack it. He is surprised when a dozen of them attack him, but he fights them off and finds a secret passageway. The chapter ends just as he drops in front of a huge red monster. The monster appears and immediately causes an earthquake. We find out that it's called the Red Oni, and just as it approaches, Eojin sees that the weak Onis he fought before also surround him. Eojin does not appear to be scared of them, as they all fall immediately, and we find out that it's the power of the Chisel of Death called Dismemberment. Just as he finishes explaining the process, the Red Oni breathes fire, and Eojin runs from it. He dodges the earthquake's impact by jumping, and his slime shoes prove to be very durable. Then 3 hours later, we see that the Red Oni is defeated. He enters the Nightmare Forest and runs from the Wet Spider as he steals its food. He enters a new territory, and just as he planned, the Longsword Needle Cobra comes out and the two monsters engage in battle. Eojin enjoys them destroying each other from the side. Back in the real world, we see other players' reactions to the rare items that Eojin posted for auction, and we see that he has already earned a lot from these auctions. He gets a call from his uncle, who nags at him to visit him and reminds him to come a day early as they will visit his parents' graves. Eojin says that he has a long way to go and decides to enter the real game. In the game, he lands in brutal desert area B, in the ruins of an ancient civilization. He kills his camel to draw the attention of the Sandworm and then uses that monster to carve a way inside the pyramid dungeon that was inaccessible otherwise. He enters inside and is surprised to find two players. He instantly recognizes the girl as Yuda Hugh and questions why she is here. We see that she used to ask for his help and his items a lot and even led him to get loans. Right now, she and her brother offer him to partner up, and he agrees, knowing they want to use him. Eojin recognizes that these two siblings caused him suffering in his last life, and he decides to take revenge. The three of them enter the monster's room, and just as it is about to attack, Eojin disappears. The siblings are annoyed as they plan to use him as a shield. They are forced to fight the monster as Eojin disables the doorknob. We find out that they will become pioneers if they defeat this monster. The monster is called the Nameless Queen, and they engage in a fierce battle. We see Eojin monitoring them from a safe place, and just as they think they're winning, the queen becomes faster. Just as she is about to finish them off, Eojin slices her head off, pissing off the siblings for stealing the last hit. Just then, they are told that they have met the criteria to activate a hidden quest, as they have one female member. The chapter ends with Da Hue being possessed by the queen's ghost and ready to fight them. Next, we see that inside Da Hue's mind, she is very confused, and both siblings are tasked to defeat each other or face heavy penalties. Da Hue decides that her brother should die, as her penalty is worse. Eojin decides to join the fight. The queen attacks him, but he successfully dodges all her attacks and continues to anger her. He even starts to taunt and mock her by pretending to sleep. This causes the queen to rage as she activates runes and attacks more seriously. Da Hue is very shocked as Eojin manages to expertly dodge all of the attacks and ends up defeating the queen and killing Da Hue as well. Eojin is the first to clear this level and gets a new sword. Back in the real world, he is glad that he recorded the raid and posted it online. The chapter ends with his phone blowing up from texts. In the real world, we see Yu Chang being angry at Eojin, and Da Hue is livid as her video went viral and it ruined her plans to be seen as a beautiful mystic. She vows to get revenge. We are then shown how Chang makes people play the game to pay off their debts. Then, we see Pro Gamer Team Seoul KI react to the video and are extremely impressed. Their director wants to hire Eojin, but Eojin refuses their offer. We then see an unnamed pro gamer analyze Eojin's performance. Then we are taken to Eojin, who enters a hidden dungeon called Rotting Underground Canal. He fights off sewage snakes and thinks that it is not the time to go pro gamer. He is welcomed by a Pygmalion statue who begs him to destroy the statue of crying Galatea. This turns out to be a hidden quest. Next, we see Eojin departing for the quest in the meat-boiling jungle, when he is ambushed by the Lone Shark siblings and a few other players that he defeated in the past. They all gather to attack him, and he decides to use them by offering a chance to accompany him on his quest. He takes advantage of their greed, and they all agree. He is accompanied by the siblings, 3 musketeers, a few of the bullies, and Ma Tai-gong, the pro gamer who was analyzing Eo-jin. Then we see the team looking for the dungeon. They come face to face with the hidden dungeon, secret puppet assembly, and Eo-jin rushes forward just as the killer scarecrow and serial murderer clown start to attack them. He uses the red Oni leather boots to create an earthquake that causes the monsters significant damage. He fights the clown, and the chapter ends with him being cocky. The chapter starts with Ma Tai-gang being impressed by Eo-jin taking out multiple C+ monsters in a few moments. We see one of the musketeers talk about how incredible Eo-jin is. When the bullies start to whine over not getting any rewards, Eo-jin kindly hands them over to them and wins over the bullies. Meanwhile, Da Hue is suspicious. They enter the second floor and find the crying Galatea. They all explore the room but find no monster, when suddenly one of the bullies ends up dead and they see that the statue has red hands. They rush to attack the statue, but their attacks have no effect. They all realize that they have to wait for the statue to move to attack it. They all turn to Eo-jin and ask what they should do. Eo-jin takes this moment to tell them that he will defeat the statue, not them, flips them off, and asks for their money. Then, we see the others argue with him, but he says he wants them to pay him 100 million gold, and he will get rid of the statue. Yu-chang gets taken out as he goes to attack Eo-jin, and Da Hue steps forward to question him. Eo-jin convinces her to put down a security deposit until he gets the job done. He also tempts them by offering the reward of defeating the statue, and this makes them all agree, and they pay him. Eo-jin thinks about how he cannot give this up as he is recording this raid. Then he tells them to look away from the statue and close their eyes. He turns around and the statue comes to life and attacks him as he engages in the fight. He asks them to open their eyes and the statue stops. Once they close their eyes again, the fight continues and the rest of them desperately wish to watch the fight. Eo-jin continues to fight the statue and is confident that he will win. The others desperately want to look, but they don't try, except Da Hue, who wants to sabotage and kill Eo-jin while he fights the statue. However, her planning goes to waste as he defeats the statue. She shouts that they did not receive any rewards when suddenly the statue starts to crack and the real monster, Medusa, comes out. As they look at her, they all start to turn to stone except Eo-jin, who has his eyes tightly closed. Da Hue curses at him for his betrayal. As they all turn to stone, Eo-jin said that knowing the location of the dungeon was enough. As he readies himself to fight Medusa, a pillar before him explodes and Eo-jin is shocked as Tai-gang stands and asks Eo-jin to fight with him. Then, we see Eo-jin be excited over the fact that Tai-gang marked him rather than the rewards. They engage in a fight, and Tai-gang focuses his attacks on Eo-jin's shield, which starts to crack from the hits. Eo-jin manages to dodge his fast hits and wonders how Tai-gang got so powerful. Tai-gang goes to finish off Eo-jin, and we see Eo-jin remember how he used to admire Tai-gang, the No-1 fighter in Korea, so much despite being older than him, and then remembers Tai-gang's moves perfectly. Using this information, he easily overwhelms Tai-gang, who wonders why Eo-jin appears to be so familiar with his fighting style. Eo-jin attacks him as he remembers Tai-gang's fatal flaw, his glass chin. He hits him and we see Tai-gang's HP dropping, but in the process, Tai-gang breaks Eo-jin's shield and vows to defeat Medusa himself. Eo-jin turns around and claims that he can defeat Medusa with just his eyes closed and faces Medusa. The chapter starts with Eo-jin live streaming his fight against Medusa. He explains how to avoid Medusa's 3 active and 1 passive skills as he fights her, keeping his eyes closed. He calmly defeats her 3rd skill, Jormungandr. He explains that now she is tired, so he will engage in a proper fight. He explains how his shield got broken, but he has an alternative, the bronze sword from the Nameless Queen. He explains how the queen has a grudge against the dragons for ruining her kingdom, and that this sword has 32,000x damage power against Medusa, who is a spawn on dragons. He attacks her and kills her just as he is turning to stone. He is the first person ever to solo and finish this raid. Eo-jin celebrates and then shuts off the stream. He receives 2 items and waits for Medusa to give him a hidden quest, which she does, and it's called Medusa's Maternal Love. The chapter ends with him receiving an ominous black key. Next, we see Aojin looking for a new house and a streaming service called Aprika, trying to get him to sign with them. Aojin refuses to tie himself with any agency right now. This is when the scene shifts to an angry Dahyue who cannot control her rage over how popular Aojin is becoming, over raids that he screws her over. She gets the idea to get revenge on him by using their guild, which has over 300 members. In the game, we see Aojin travel to the nest of Depraved, but finds many monsters dead already. He is confused that someone other than him has started a raid. He rushes in to face a blue Oni and defeats it within 3 hours. However, he spots that an archer is here. Suddenly, he is blown back by an explosion that takes off the majority of his HP, and he sees a mysterious player fighting a Gorgon. Aojin recognizes the player as Drake KET, who becomes #1 in the world. Drake expertly fights the Gorgon and defeats it by laying a clever but deadly trap. Aojin is very impressed by his plan. Just as Drake turns his back, Aojin steps in and summons Jormungandr to eat the Gorgon's tail that was about to kill Drake. Drake promises to save Aojin's life twice in return, and Aojin asks him to help him now as he opens the hidden level of the Nest of Depraved using the black key. The floor crumbles and they fall into the hidden level, coming face to face with Medusa's son, the Basilisk. Next, we get the backstory of the Basilisk, how its father, the Black Dragon, imprisoned it here since birth so it wouldn't attack him and trapped Medusa in the statue. The Basilisk has a very high defense power and attacks with poisons. Aojin jumps in first using Jormungandr, who is resistant to poisons. They both try to attack it but fail to defeat it and run away. Aojin plans to run up the levels of the basements to exhaust the Basilisk and then take it out. They dodge many powerful attacks as they run upwards, but Aojin notices that they are more than halfway up, and the beast isn't tired. Then he lures the Basilisk to an opening and summons the Blue Oni, so that the Blue Oni can land some damage on the Basilisk. They watch as the two monsters start to fight. We see the two monsters engage in a heated battle as the two run away. The Blue Oni lasts about 10 seconds before the Basilisk kills him. Aojin notices that the Basilisk's HP has gone down 50%, and it rushes ahead and lands before the two. Drake voices out that this is it for them when Aojin takes out his hidden item, Amalgam Foot Leather. It is a combination of the two Onis and uses it to create a terrifying earthquake that sends the Basilisk down the floor. Aojin explains that the Basilisk will keep going down as it cannot reflect damage to its surroundings, which are already weak from its climb above, and that this will end its HP. The Basilisk will fall to the last level and eventually die. This is exactly what happens, and Drake is very impressed but feels useless as he did nothing. Aojin gets a rare item and offers Drake to come look for items with him. Just then, Drake lets Aojin know that there is a bounty on him, stagnant water, and that guilds want him dead. As people approach them, Drake offers to lay low, but Aojin wants to face them all and get rid of them. Then, we are introduced to many different players who are fighting amongst each other in the harsh desert. Dahyue appears and rallies all the players by chanting that the reason they are here is to kill stagnant water. We find out that over 500 people have gathered to kill Aojin, and in total, there are 2 guilds and many Chinese players are also involved. We see Dahyue thank Drake for the tip on Aojin's location. He tells her that he wants money in turn for killing stagnant water. Dahyue agrees, and then we are shown that they all march towards Aojin the next day. Dahyue wishes to kill him, as she spent a lot of money to get a magic scroll. They all attack as soon as they see a glowing sword, but it turned into a big piece of turd, and then it turned into a dead camel. As the party is confused, Aojin causes an earthquake and sends them the Sandworm as a gift. Next, we go back to a conversation between Aojin and Drake and find out that they plan to fool the Alliance as Drake will assassinate all the targets among them and get their money, and Aojin will get rid of the rest. Drake also leaked the information that Aojin will be there the next day at 2, and they all bought it. We also find out that the Chinese Yungshi, who wants Aojin dead, is Aojin himself. Back in the present, we see the Alliance struggle to handle the Sandworm, but Dahyue rallies them again, and they coordinate ice attacks. Just then, Drake takes out the bully, Jang Taek, and she realizes that Drake double-crossed them. Next, We see Eojin explain how he hid himself with Jormungandr and how he nicked the worm with his chisel, making him part of the kill. Just then, the worm collapses and they all rejoice, but as Eojin shows up, they all worry that he has come to steal from them. As he is celebrating his kill of the Sandworm, Da Hui attacks him. We see Eojin take 0 damage from that hit. Instead, Da Hui takes the damage as he is wearing the heart of the depraved skin that reflects damage. Drake worries for Eojin, who tells him that he is perfectly okay, and that since the players that attacked the Sandworm are dead and only he is alive, he gets the drop, Sandworm's hide. It is an item that Eojin wanted, and he explains how it saves the wearer from 10,000 HP of damage and even leaves behind 1 HP. Eojin is extremely excited, and just then the other players start to shout at them for stealing the drop, but the two escape using the hide. Back in the real world, we see Taegang's classmates fanboy over stagnant water streams, and we see a guy approach Taegang regarding items, and Taegang tells him to prepare the money and leaves. We find out his backstory, how his parents work a lot for his sister's treatment, and he worries about making money when suddenly an illegal Toto League flyer lands in his hands. We see a heated discussion on inheritance amongst the members of Eojin's family. Eojin's uncle goes off and scolds him for not being in college and for playing games all the time. They discuss the inheritance, and Eojin is disappointed that not much has been left for him and wonders how they will react when they find out how rich he has become. Eojin takes over the discussion and tells them the proper legal process on how they can access their inheritance, shocking everyone. As his cousins come to bully him, his uncle moves to scold the kids. This angers Eojin as he knows how his cousins will fail in the future. Just then, a truck comes in front of their house, and Eojin walks outside as it's his luxury sports car being delivered. The chapter ends with Eojin being excited that the Toto League is starting, and we see that the first match is between PK Joe and Taegang, Marios. Next, we see the crowd underestimate Taegang and bet on the other Japanese player, but Taegang easily takes him out, winning against all odds. He is confident that he will win. He needs to win 3 more times to get the prize. His next opponent is called Goenmul, which means stagnant water in Korean, and he hesitates thinking Eojin followed him here. However, he guesses immediately that this guy is an imposter, as even his appearance doesn't match Eojin despite the disguise. They fight and Taegang gets the upper hand as he uses his special technique, and this leads to the imposter's true identity being revealed. He is Kosei, number 3 in the world, and is a pro gamer. Kos ditches the disguise, wears his true armor, and provokes Taegang to fight him for real. The chapter starts with Taegang rushing to punch Kosei, but it has no effect on him. Instead, he takes damage from Kosei's counterattack. Kosei launches a series of overwhelming attacks on Taegang, with a lot of power and speed, causing Taegang to surrender and lose. As Taegang moves out, he bumps into another player who asks him why he didn't hit Kosei's chin instead of his stomach. As Taegang refuses to answer him, he asks Taegang to bet on him, and as he leaves, Taegang asks him if he is stagnant water, as his peace sign reminds him of Eojin. In the arena, Kosei asks this new player, Ma Dongwang, to bring it on. The chapter ends with Ma Dongwang destroying the floor of the arena, shocking Kosei, and then landing a hard smack on him. We are taken to the past where we see Eojin finding the Toto League flyer as he was thinking about ways to accumulate even more wealth. We see him observe the fight between Taegang and Kosei in his Ma Dongwang disguise, and he is shocked to find out that Taegang is participating. He even figures out who Kosei is. Eojin bets on Kosei and wins a lot of money. Back to the present, Eojin lands punch after punch on Kosei as he figures out that close-range combat is the most effective against him, as his technique causes him paralysis for 0.5 seconds. Eojin causes an earthquake again, and then we are told that he used Ma Dongwang's disguise as, in his past life, Ma Dongwang was a legendary player who dropped out after he was caught for match fixing. Eojin knows what skills Ma Dongwang will use for his debut and decided to use them now. Eojin uses his item to draw Kosei near and dodges Kosei's attacks. He finishes off Kosei, shocking the arena. The chapter ends with Taegang being amazed at Ma Dongwang's performance. The chapter starts with Eojin having difficulty against a gruesome monster and a pink-haired girl, wondering how things ended up this way. We are taken back a week and find out that this girl is called Hong Young-hwa, and she is a production director of the show From Beginnings to the Crown in LGB. She is waiting to meet stagnant water. Eo-jin tells her that he has broadcasting content in mind. He tells her that he wants to attempt the Tomb of the Brave. This shocks her, and the reader is told that this tomb is a tower that has 108 levels, and each level has a different monster. We are told that it is Dem's most popular content, and even with the combined effort of multiple countries' players, the highest they've gone is the 45th level. She has complete confidence that he will ace it. Back to the present, we see Eo-jin approach the tomb and Young-hwa is there with him in spirit form. Eo-jin tells us that the 108 floors have a ranking system of monsters starting from C and ending on S+, and that even 15 years later, it wasn't fully cleared. Eo-jin plans to get the third item that he desires, and he charges towards the tomb. The chapter starts with Eo-jin struggling against a monster. He motivates himself and ends up defeating it. We find out that he was struggling against the Slime Queen, and this causes Young-hwa to feel embarrassed for Eo-jin as it took him 2 hours to defeat it. He fights his way up to the 46th floor and faces Kaidomaru. Young-hwa tells us that he has taken 0 hits until now. Eo-jin uses Basilisk Venom to burn Kaidomaru. He uses Sinister Coil against Kaidomaru's attacks and is confident that he will win. He uses the Chisel and takes out Kaidomaru. He became the first in the world to clear this level, and Young-hwa screams in joy. He receives the essence of Kaidomaru and uses it on his fusion boot to create an upgraded boot. He plans to enter the 47th floor to face the promiscuous succubus. They enter the 47th floor and are immediately attacked by the promiscuous succubus. Eo-jin announces that he is in trouble as this succubus is a physical attack 1 instead of a magical one, meaning it will be harder to defeat. She is extremely strong and very fast too. Eo-jin notices that he cannot survive much longer if this continues. He activates his skin armor as she attacks, but nothing happens. Young-hwa panics as she worries about what will happen, but Eo-jin decides to use the essence of the Slime Queen to slow her speed. Young-hwa and Eo-jin bicker over how seductive the succubus looks now when she attacks him again, but this time her attack power is doubled, but her speed is slower. Just then, he gets Kanshumaro's foot leather and attacks her with a lava kick, which ends up defeating the succubus. He gets a tiger sword as a drop. As Young-hwa asks him how many levels he will go ahead, Eo-jin tells her that he will stop now.
Hey viewers, subscribe for more.